Here's a little rant about being a player in D&D or any TTRPG really, and being a DM. I've got a lot of experience with this. You see, I DM or GM, I prefer that terminology because, D&D kind of crap right now. Whenever I GM for a total of about 7 groups, which to all my GMs out there, that's a lot. That is a lot of groups. I don't have time to plan for any of them. But I do have a lot of control. It's a very different environment whether you're being a player or a DM. And as you can see, I'm standing now and got the socks. Whether it's from falling as a player or sitting at the table and being a little weirdo as a DM. So, as a DM or GM, I'm used to being in control, writing the story, playing all the NPCs, all the monsters, and expecting to lose in all those fights, and all the fights and everything. I don't expect to win unless I actually do need to for a story reason. But as a player, the main difference is between the GM and the player is how many characters are in control and how the story really is presented. Both people have an equal say in the story. Players are the characters. They're the main characters. They're the protagonists of the story. The DM is also a protagonist, but he's more describing the world. He's more making the villains. He's the world constructor. Both are equally important to the story to allow it to actually exist. You sit around with your friends, and a goblin appears. What do? That's what a player, what a GM might say. Oh my gosh, I'm not used to this. But a player would be the responding and saying, I would like to cast Fireball, because that's the only thing players do all the time. And when they're supposed to be using Charisma, it's only Fireball. Even the fighter has Fireball for some reason. Why do they all have Fireball? Fireball. The DM's worst nightmare, Fireball. See the regret in my eyes. Given that scroll of Fireball, please help me. But it's very different for the players, but they're both constructing a story together. But I'm very used to being a GM. I did start as a player, of course. But I got into GMing, I stopped playing, and I GM'd a ton, and then I got back into playing for 2 other groups. It's weird. It's weird being a player and then going into being a DM. Being a DM then going into a player. Blah, 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 blah. I do not have a script, if you can't tell. Yeah, it's back to what I was saying. It's weird. You see, I go into being a player. I'm used to describing the world, describing all the actions, describing what's happening, describing the action. Actions and action, 2 different things. I'm used to that. So going into a player, I'm actually making a character for once. And because of how much I GM, I naturally start min-maxing it just a little bit. Just a tiny little bit of min-maxing. So I end up making like a sorcerer, bard, barbarian with a 19 AC, a 20 charisma, and we just started the game. So it means a little bit of So that's how it starts. And then, playing, I'm used to like describing my stuff, so I accidentally end up like describing stuff like a DM is supposed to, just naturally sometimes, and it's super weird. It's weirds out the table, weirds out me. It's all just very weird. And then I have to adjust to like role, but the role play is still the same. The roleplay skills all transfer over from GM to player, which is nice. Because if they didn't, I'd still be throwing Bibles at people in the game as a player. So I'm glad all that transfers over. That's good. That's good, nice stuff. I can walk around now. That's fun. So all that transfers over. So that's good. But it's still strange. And then going from player to GM, I suddenly have to keep track of hundreds of characters, hundreds of NPCs, the entire map. Like the size of Breath of the Wild. It's so much. So I have to do that. I have to learn all these new skills, and then when I go back to player, most of those skills are just thrown out the window. But you got to get used to it. And something someone said was like, I'm used to having all that control as a GM. Not having it as a player feels strange, which I relate to that a lot. It's an interesting and tricky thing, but you got to learn how to do both of them so you can actually truly enjoy TTRPGs, Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, the one I made, self-promotion.